We have with us tonight Sheriff Manuel Gonzales, and you're ready to go, right? Okay, he's got some things he's got to get to, the sort of stuff of keeping crime down and all that sort of thing. So, Sheriff, let me turn the mic over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good well, I should say good evening, right? Well, I just wanted to introduce myself. I see some familiar faces out there, and I appreciate you inviting me to this event. Obviously, we've been in office for about 5 months, and we've got some things done, actually, believe it or not, even though we're public officials. But to let you know a little bit about me, I've served honorably in the United States Marine Corps, had the opportunity to come back home and serve my community with the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. Served there about 21 and a half years. Went through an election process last time, was unfortunate enough for me to lose, and then I came back and won this time. So it's an honor for me to come back. We took a different approach in what we wanted to do this time in terms of what was priorities. So to share with you, because I believe that this would be important to you, is we went through the budget because the county was in a deficit. And we have a projected cost savings of $1.6 million after we went through this budget. So those are things that we feel that we need to be responsible as good stewards of the taxpayers' money and look at every item to make sure that we're spending money responsibly. But we also said that, we don't always feel like, we do a reactive job in terms of going to calls for service for people in the community, but we felt we wanted to be more proactive. So some of the things we have changed is we added a delegation of deputies down at the jail because we just felt that that was a lost opportunity for us to get information on intelligence, really all the network of all the crime that goes on here. It's an untapped, really place where nobody's really went before. And it is turning out to be a very good thing for us because we've gotten information on homicides, cold case information, narcotics cases that have led us outside the state of New Mexico, has given us information on some of these organized crime organizations that you see, no different than what you're seeing here that go on in Dallas. So, we often find ourselves not only sharing information internally, but externally with other state and federal agencies. So, we're really excited about what's getting done there. We were able to reorganize. I asked the county commission to amend the ordinance for me to have 2 undersheriffs because in our transition meetings and some of the things we learned from the Department of Justice, because our neighbors and our partners there, Albuquerque Police Department, has been scrutinized with the Department of Justice. So we paid attention to what was going on before the writing on the wall, so to speak, and said before we get in any kind of trouble or let's get out ahead of this, be proactive, is let's identify what's going on in that report. And one of the big issues was a span of control. So one of my reasons for asking for 2 undersheriffs was to be able to manage an agency of 450 employees better. And it seems like it's worked out, going back to what I said earlier about saving in the budget. But we were able to reorganize the department, and we're getting a lot of good feedback because the field officers who serve you every day that go to your homes are happy. The morale is up. They like what's being done because we're getting them the support they need. No longer do they have to drive out to the jail and take those calls. We have, like I said, the detectives, a delegation of detectives out there that take those calls for them. It frees them up to be at the citizens' homes, so to speak, quicker, and they're not tied down to driving out to the jail and spending 3 or 4 hours at any given day taking multiple reports. And there's a lot of things I'd like to share with you, but another thing I think a gentleman brought up to me, and I think they knew one of our captains, is that we've actually brought more of our command staff out to the field. And when I say that, to the Field Services Division. So our commanders aren't downtown anymore. They're actually at the substations. We have a captain that shares 2 responsibilities between the East Mountains and the North Valley. And then we have another captain that's dedicated to, which is our largest calls for service in the South Valley. And we feel that that's a huge benefit for the citizens and the people of this community because they're able to attend functions that where where citizens are coming out and having their concerns and want to air their issues, they can attend these type of meetings if they need to. So we're excited about that because they have the authority to get things done as opposed to somebody lower in the chain of command. And they're able to, get things done because they have the authority. They can reach across different divisions and talk to the upper, so to speak, and the command staff so they can get things done on your behalf. So that's just a little bit of what's going on. And that doesn't include all the stuff we have to deal with on a daily basis. I'm sure you're seeing the national anti-sentiment towards law enforcement right now, which is upsetting for us because, for us, we didn't get in this business. We came to protect and serve people. And are we going to have issues? We're going to have issues just like no other family. If you have families, you're always going to you're going to deal with issues in that family. And we always try to give the analogy and to compare our department to a family, and are we going to have people that we, get training for, or sometimes maybe even let go because they're not cut out for this line of work? Well, that's part of what we said we would do because we hold people accountable, and we should because just in kind of comparison to the military, I know things are coming up nationally about that, is we're not the military. We understand that there's two different missions. We serve the people. The military, obviously, we have adversaries and enemies out there, and they're two separate things. And we just want to make sure that people are clear in our agency that they respect and understand the needs of the people in Bernalillo County. So with that being said, if you have any questions of me, I would be more than glad to take them. Yes, sir.
Questions? What would you say are some of your achievements as opposed to what Dan Houston left? And secondly, a little conspiracy theory here. I have watched police lining up with the federal government, especially once they were being armed with tactical weapons, versus the sheriff's departments in this country signing pledges and vowing to fight the illegal immigration battle and not, let's just call it anyway, and basically saying, this is my county, this is my state, as opposed to the police, like I say, who seem to be on the opposite sides of the fence. So, two questions.
So the first one being,
Improvements over
okay, the improvements I'm going to say, well, I'm not going to compare myself to the other sheriff because I didn't get in this business to compare myself to other sheriffs or other chiefs, but I will. So my point is this: in terms of services and information, one of our priorities is to be proactive, and being proactive is going out there. Like I said, one of the initiatives is the jail, and we collaborate a lot more. One thing we've developed over the time we've been here is better relationships locally, state, and federal. And I'm not just saying that because I'm up here and I have the mic in front of me. This is being told to me over and over and over again because sometimes I'm going to give you just a small example of some of the things we're dealing with. Two of our last officer-involved shootings, we've noticed that some of these people that we're dealing with, they have 35 to 70 arrests. And we're still dealing with these folks. So one thing we did is we spoke to the federal, to the feds, the FBI, other federal entities on how they could support us in these efforts because obviously at the state level we're not getting what we feel is the support in these issues and why we're still dealing with these type of individuals who are very dangerous not only to the public but to law enforcement. And as a result of that, they're looking at charging those people federally, even with threats against law enforcement. And we've had cases already where they've looked at prosecuting people federally where there's more teeth in that system and that these people will actually be serving time instead of us maybe in a year, 2 years from now, end up in shootings with these folks again because they're not, not only are they dangerous people and they have extensive criminal histories, but I mean, they're coming out and shooting and it's like I don't want our officers to feel that they don't have the support they need to defend the people in this county and defend themselves. So that's one thing. We've built better relationships and we're doing more collaboration. The other thing I think we've done very well in terms of an administration is that we did go line by line through some of these agreements with other agencies, services, contracts, and I think saying with the better relationships we've actually had with the county and trying to get better services not only at the courthouse but at the jail, there's a projected savings of $1.6 million not only for us but for the county. So I think those things of us being very attentive to the budget and being good stewards of the taxpayers' money, I think we're doing a great job right there. Well, we're gonna, yeah, we're gonna uphold the Constitution. I mean, and we're here to, we're not gonna just take a blind following to the federal government. I mean, they're trying. There's things that they want to push on. I'm gonna say push, and we're not saying if we don't, we're not gonna fall into that trap. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to serve the people. Yes, sir. I always get this question about me against it, but this is my answer. Is the body camera is a tool. It's not a solution. It's a tool. It's no different than an officer wearing a firearm, a taser, a baton, chemical agents. The sheriff's department has a long-standing history and good reputation with the citizens of Bernalillo County. We don't have a history of excessive force in this. And I don't know if this is the direction that people are trying to maybe fall in that and have us fall in line with maybe what's going on across the country. But I'm going to take a stand and support what's right. And until we get a majority of the people saying that's what they want, that's what they feel that's needed, then we'll do that. We feel that that's being pushed more by the media, and because that's being pushed by the media, that I'm not going to just say yes. So we put out a committee to find out the research so we have facts and we make informed, wise decisions, because that's what we're supposed to do as elected officials. It's not me just reacting to what's going on because I feel politically pressured. I don't feel that way, because I'm saying I work there. I understand the concerns. I'm a citizen here. I have my family and my children and my friends in this community, and I want to do what's right for this community. I'm not going to fall into, they come up with these different polls nationally. Well, if you really look at the polls nationally, they're saying only a third of these agencies, but we got to understand, do they have issues with excessive force? I say Bernalillo County hasn't had that issue, and we don't want to just be thrown in there because one incident. Like I tried to explain to you earlier, we're not going to do everything perfect, but we'll definitely hold our people accountable. But accountability works both ways. And for as much as we want to be held accountable, we want them to hold those criminals accountable too. So thank you. Yes, ma'am. I almost feel like you rode down the road with this on the way to this event, because me and the undersheriff, he was just briefing me. We got a request from the Albuquerque Police Department probably a couple hours ago to help support them in their calls, because they're down 77 calls right now. So we just freed up 8 of our deputies to go help them in an area because they're understaffed. And you know what? This isn't just because you're here. We're saying that. I mean, I've heard over the time we've been here, people have literally come down from the foothills down to the South Valley to get services from our deputies because they feel comfortable with them. And that's what we want. We want a certain level of community outreach where people humanize us. They know that we're no different than them. We want them to treat people compassionately, respectfully. But at the end of the day, we want our deputies to go home safe too. So, you know what, we all feel like our approach on law enforcement is that we're all in this together. And really, we feel that the community is our eyes and ears. And as long as I feel like we communicate, we're organized, and my undersheriff often says that, you don't want to have an unorganized law enforcement group when you have an organized criminal organization. We need to be more organized than the criminals so we can win on these crime issues. Yes, sir. Absolutely. So when we're going out this evening to help the Albuquerque Police Department, we have a communication system where we share, where it's mutual. So they can communicate on our network, we can communicate on theirs. And it's also with other entities in the state. And actually, we're working on a better system where it's more standardized throughout the state. So, yes, sir, there is. Yes. A large what? You know what? My undersheriff is here. He's probably one of the foremost experts in narco terrorism and gang. Do you want to take that question, undersheriff? Yeah, I'll let him ask it. I'd rather have somebody that's more of an expert on it.
That's right. Can you blame me? Can you blame me? Yeah. Well, you know what's the problem we face here in New Mexico? The problem we face here in New Mexico is one, our proximity to Mexico, and of course we're a border state. The second problem we face is that we're now considered in the narco culture a hub state. So what we face here, we have proximity to Mexico, proximity to drugs and violence, and then we have our vast highway system that we have Interstate 25 that goes straight out of pretty much when connects to Interstate 10 straight out of El Paso all the way up north, and then we have I-40 running right through, and Interstate 10 running right through. So it makes us a prime target for these gangs. The problem that we have, and I said this today, you know, earlier in the meeting, we face, as law enforcement, faced and battle organized crime with unorganized law enforcement. It's a plain truth. These organized crime, they have unlimited budgets. They hold their folks to a different standard where we couldn't get away with that in law enforcement. So we're always facing these challenges, you know. So as it relates to the gang problem here in New Mexico and especially Albuquerque, yes, it's there. You know, we have a problem here with the Sureños, which is a prison-based gang with the Sureños, meaning the Southerners. And unlike any other gang out in the streets, and I'll give you an example, you get the Bloods and the Crips out here in the streets, they fight each other. You get the biker gangs that just happened in Colorado, they fight each other. When they go to prison, they continue to fight each other. The Sureños or the Mexican gangs, when they get in prison, they band together. And that's what makes them so powerful. They run these gangs on the street through the prison walls, you know, and it's something. Can you give an example, like the jail initiative and then the information you got, maybe the collaborative? Yeah, perfect example is we get someone in jail and they don't have an opportunity. And with the sheriff's new initiative, they get booked in and they given an opportunity to speak to a detective. In one particular case, this guy said, you know what, I have information. There's 30 pounds of crystal meth sitting at a house over here, you know. And sure enough, they collaborate the information. He gives the color of the house, who's there, who should be at the house, the vehicles out in front. Our deputies go out there, do surveillance. Sure enough, we hit the house with a search warrant. There's 30 pounds of crystal meth. It's tied to a major case in another state that ties all back to, again, gangs in our area. And the way the cartels work, you know, I'll give you a little history of the Mexican border as it rates right here in New Mexico. We have the Juarez cartel, which was typically historically ran by Armando Carrillo Fuentes back in the day. He was a guy that underwent plastic surgery and had his whole thing changed, and mysteriously he was nowhere to be found. The doctor that performed the surgery was found along with the nurses and 55-gallon drums parts. You know, that's what we deal with out there. That they still control what we call the frontera, the Mexican border. How it relates to gangs is the biggest misconception for anyone is they say, oh, the cartels are here in the U.S. Are there tentacles here? Absolutely. But the cartels themselves, the bosses, they're not here. They know they would never get away with what they do. So what they do is they make alliances with these street gangs to go out there and move their product. And it's horrible thing. It's one thing that I faced my whole career. I'm totally against drugs and legalization of drugs. You know, things that have gone on here lately, it's atrocious. You know, the legalization of marijuana all throughout. I'm telling you right now, majority of all crime committed in our community has somehow some relationship to drugs. Okay? There's not a person in here, I guarantee you, that cannot raise your hand and say, I've never been affected by drugs. Because I guarantee you know somebody, you have a family member that was hooked on drugs, maybe you're victimized by someone breaking into your car to support their habit. The roots grow deep. Any other questions I can? And a perfect example, I brought up Armada Carrillo Fuentes. You know, he was one of the original drug lords in Mexico. And if one thing he was ever good for in the streets of Juarez, Mexico, is that he didn't allow drugs to be in the city of Juarez. He truly had drugs to make what he would say the bloodthirst of the Americans for our product. He goes, Americans don't know what we go through to provide them the drugs that they need. And when the following of him going down, and you weren't allowed to touch a woman, you weren't allowed to touch a kid. You know, everyone else was fair game. But you couldn't hurt a child, you couldn't hurt a woman. But when he went down, and you had the Gulf Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel now battling for that territory, which is worth about $150 billion a year. You do the math, $150 billion a year, that's 3 Oprahs. 3 Oprah Winfreys. You know, we won't go there. But I'm telling you, now you're seeing kids being executed, women being executed, when it's a violent culture. And the statistics show that they'll recruit these young kids right around 10 and 12 years old because they're not completely developed mentally. So the right and wrong isn't quite there. And so you're seeing in the Mexican culture, they call them sicarios. They're assassins. And they go out there and they're killing at age 10, 11, and 12 years old. And by the time they're teenagers, they have no problem pulling a weapon out and going to somebody and putting it to the ear and pull the trigger. And it's like going to the store and buying a lollipop for the rest of our kids. They don't see any remorse in that. And you're seeing that spread into the the United States culture. You know, because right now in New Mexico, we're a minority majority state. It won't be long before the whole country, I believe, is going to be a minority majority country. It's just the facts of life, you know. You know what? To this date, not very much. Not very much. We saw a big kick in the early 80s to mid 90s. You know, we had a lot of Operation Safe Street money coming in, and since then it's gone downhill. You know, you've had HIDA right now. The biggest money that we get is from federal government is Homeland Security monies, and it's pretty restricted. You know, pretty restricted to right along the border. And but grant funding for law enforcement we're hurting. We're hurting.
It's not going to affect us. We reviewed that document. As a matter of fact, I looked at it yesterday morning, hot off the press, and there wasn't anything for us to be concerned about. I talked to a guy in operations that does most of our special operations stuff in terms of SWAT, and we looked at some of our items in our inventory, and there was nothing that they came out with from the federal government that we had in-house. So we feel very confident that it's not going to impact us at all.
And I approved a purchase, not really a purchase of that, because we acquire that military equipment. The equipment that our aircraft is going to go pick up, our pilot is going to go pick up a hoist, and it's up in Colorado. So we authorized him to go pick up that. It's a $130,000 hoist, which we'll use in rescue missions in the East Mountain, fire issues. So that's the type of equipment that we're getting. Anything to do with weapons, we're not touching. We don't have any armored plated vehicles. A lot of stuff we're getting is just going to, we also recently got some ATVs to help out with the East Mountain fire suppression equipment, stuff like that.
Our equipment's generally used for public safety. And like we said, we have a helicopter unit that does search and rescue. So some of the equipment that we acquire is for that effort. But now we're not trying to militarize our department. I think I stated that earlier. We're trying to, obviously trying to just reach out to the community and work closer with them and actually build a better relationship and network with them. Yes, ma'am. Again, I think anytime we communicate, we figure out how we can better plan, again, organize, work together, get information, figure out what your resources. I think one of the gentlemen that I spoke to earlier was part of Class 2. Please raise your hand of the Sheriff's Civilian Academy. And when you take part in those type of programs that we have, it really helps out the agency in terms of acting as an ambassador, an advocate for law enforcement. So I would really encourage you to look at our website, maybe get involved in those programs, because then you understand how your resources are utilized, who the faces and voices are of the agency, how to get things done, and it makes you better informed and educated on your law enforcement organization and obviously your services. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. I reminded the chief one day of that. So, and you know, this is why, is because, you know, they were trying to ask us to give a kind of it was a business group of concerned citizens here in Albuquerque, and they asked us to compare each of our positions and try to give them a better understanding of who the chief of police was for Albuquerque, who the chief of police for the state police was, and who the sheriff of Bernalillo County was. And it was, you know, they said, obviously the chief of police from Albuquerque said, hey, you know, I'm appointed by the mayor. And then, of course, the state police chief said, I work for the governor. And then, obviously, I said, I work for the people. So my authority comes from the Constitution of the state of New Mexico, and I understand that authority. So we make it very clear, and we understand that we cross-commission them also to do work in the county, and that anytime we're not happy with maybe the services they're giving the people in Bernalillo County, if there's any issues with their services, then at any time we can pull those cross-commissions from them. Yes, sir. Here we go. See, this is immediate service. Remember, so these are how things. These are how things really get done. And you know, we're joking around, but really, when I'm telling you that it's important that these captains come to your meetings, and these other command staff personnel, their authority that they have inside the agency allows them to go and get some of these things done immediately. Because when somebody comes to me at a neighborhood association meeting, just like this gentleman brought up his issue in his neighborhood, they give it to us. We have somebody go over there and they address something very rapidly. You know, it might take. We had one gentleman that called me and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm having an issue in Adobe Acres," and I gave the information to one of the narcotics detective. Within a week, they had arrested that person because, you know, there's things missing because obviously they were dealing heroin out of the home. But they went in there, they executed a search warrant, got these people evicted, and got them out of their neighborhood. And, you know, and to me, again, we're looking at long-term solutions, too. We just don't want these things to get done and then these people not being held accountable. I think that's the most frustrating thing for us right now, not only as an agency, but probably as a community, is that when are these people going to be held accountable? That's what we're concerned about. I don't want to see our deputies out there facing these people that are out there have 35, 70 arrests and knowing that they have families too and that they might not be going home. That's not what we want. We want these people to be held accountable. So we know there's nothing broken in law enforcement, but oftentimes we're dealing with the most difficult people because there is some kind of breakdown in the criminal justice system. Yes, sir. Okay. I'm going to let Rudy's the expert in that area. We are attending meetings that have to do with opiates, and he's probably the foremost expert. So let's let him have at that.
And absolutely, you're absolutely right. Since that initiative took place, you saw the price of heroin drop from roughly $100 a BB down to roughly $10 a BB, because the demand, there was no demand for it. They could go to their grandma, their mother's medicine cabinet and get different types of oxycodone and just pop those. I deal with that right now. I have a 17-year-old daughter, attends Cibola High School. I said, Dad, a kid came up to me and wanted me to purchase Suboxone strips, and that's what our children are faced. But you're absolutely right. There's a breakdown there, because what ends up happening when they can buy oxycodone for $30 a hit, they're going to go to heroin because they can get it for $10 a hit, and it's sad, but it's the reality that we face. Yeah, and Commissioner Maggie Hart Stebbins, she has her opiate forum, and I know they do a lot of good work, and they're trying to tackle this problem, but that's what's hurting our youth the most right now is prescription medications. There are overdosing by the hundreds and thousands across the nation, and it's sad. My own cousin, I saw him turn off, tweak out his back. He's strung out on heroin now. Because he kept on coming to my mom. Hey, I need to get your pain medications. We kind of feel compassion for the youth. I finally tell my mom, knock it off. You're not helping him out any. We need to get him some help. And now he's strung out on heroin. All because of simple back tweak. It's horrible. Well, I'm going to let you go on that one. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
I have some